Somebody have a jacket that, thank you. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. The closed session of the city council meeting for Tuesday, June 21st. And we will call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. And roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara,
Here.
Councilmember Santos,
Here.
Councilmember Fenn,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Here.
Mayor White.
Here. And do we have any public comments at this point?
Not for this section in written. Carrie, do we have anyone on the phone?
No callers on the line.
Mr. Pinckney, can you read the items for discussion, please?
Yes, the council will be meeting in closed session. Item number 1 is conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3. Two claims, Rocio Esmeralda Sandoval and United Financial Casualty Company ASO Emmanuel Sandoval. And the second item is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The city designated representatives, interim city manager Elizabeth Gibbs, and administrative services director Carrie Mendoza, and the employee organization is the SEIU.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn to our closed session. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. We're back from our closed session. Let's hear a report out from Mr. Pinckney about what took place in the closed session, please.
Yes, the council met in closed session. Item number 1 was conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3, 2 claims, one by Rocio Esmeralda Sandoval and the second by United Financial Casualty Company, ASO Emmanuel Sandoval. And there was a motion to deny both claims. And the first was made by Mayor White and the second by Councilmember Fenn. And the vote was Mayor White to deny the claim, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez to deny the claim, Councilmember Fenn to deny the claim, Councilmember Laura to deny the claim, and Councilmember Santos to deny the claim. The second item was conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. City designated representatives, Interim City Manager Elizabeth Gibbs and Administrative Services Director Carrie Mendoza. Regarding the employee organization SEIU, there was no reportable action taken on that item. And that concludes the report out from closed session.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll call the open session, the regular session of the City Council meeting. I'll call this meeting to order at 6:02. And can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Lara?
Here.
Councilmember Santos?
Here.
Councilmember Fenn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Here.
Mayor White?
Here. And at this time, if you'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Santos, will you lead us?
Okay. Put your right hand on your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Santos.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we have a couple recognitions and proclamations here tonight. I'd like to start sort of in reverse order and begin with an announcement we have regarding the Southern California Edison Scholarship presentation. Today, we are recognizing recent Beaumont High School graduate, Rodlyn Hume Dawson, class of 2022. She has a long list of accomplishments that we can all be so proud of. One of those many accomplishments is earning a $40,000 scholarship through the Edison Scholar Program. I wanted to let you know that Edison wanted to be here, but the presenter came down ill and was not able to make it. So I'd like to finish what they had asked us to read. Each year, through shareholder funding, Edison International, parent company of SCE, awards $40,000 scholarships to 30 high school seniors to help them follow their dreams in science, technology, engineering, or math, STEM, and empower them to change the world. The scholarship application process is open to all high school seniors that live in the SCE service area. The next application process starts in October 2022, and hopefully we'll have more Edison scholars from Beaumont. This scholarship provides an opportunity for students like Rodlyn who have big dreams to advance their education and take part in shaping a brighter future. She is part of an exceptional group of students who plan to pursue studies in STEM fields. Rodlyn's goal is to help solve climate change through mathematical formulas and create technology that will more accurately predict future weather patterns. This evening, Rodlyn and her family are here so that we can recognize her accomplishments. Congratulations, Rodlyn. We are also proud of you. I'd like to invite you up to tell us about what school you're headed to and anything else you'd like to share with the City Council and the community.
Okay, so I'm headed up to UC Berkeley this fall to study math and minor in music, and I just want to thank you for for recognizing me and letting me have this opportunity here today.
Thank you and congratulations. If we'd like to get a picture with you, if that's okay. Why don't we go down?
Good job.
you know, I went to UCLA, so we'll be on opposite sides of the football field. But, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Lifestream Blood Bank, you have a hard act to follow. You're up.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, for having us this evening. And it looks like I need a sign-in. 1 second. There we go. Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael McDaniel. I'm the Director of Donor Recruitment for Lifestream Blood Bank. We have been the primary blood supplier for this area, the Inland Empire, the Low Desert, for the last 70 years. We are the local nonprofit blood bank, and we supply over 80 hospitals in 6 counties. We take about 500 donations a day just to meet that hospital demand. We do that through our fixed site centers, which you'll see a preview of in just a moment, as well as over 1,600 mobile blood drives annually. Here is a map of our fixed site centers. I am pleased to announce that we just opened Hemet. We're very excited about that. And we are working with our realtor to open a center here in Beaumont, specifically where the Ross Dress for Less is, that shopping center. We're having a little bit of trouble right now, but we're working through it, and we hope to finalize that deal in the coming months and have that center open before the end of the year. We are still in an ongoing critical blood shortage. I think many of you probably remember January when the American Red Cross, for the first time in its history, declared a national blood emergency. That press helped all the blood banks. All of our donations went up, the blood supply improved. We are now back down to those levels. We have less than 2 days on hand, which is considered critical. It means that we are not prepared for a mass trauma incident like we saw in Buffalo or Uvalde. Those types of incidents are 400 to 1,000 pint incidents, to put that into perspective. Up on the screen, you see Paisley. Paisley was 5 months old, is 5 months old, a little older now. She survived an open heart transplant and required 41 pints of blood that we supplied. She is alive today because 41 people came together to save her life. That's what it takes. An estimated 37% of the population can donate blood. Less than 10%, it's actually about 4% of the population, actually donates blood. So how much does it take? Well, about every 2 seconds, someone in the United States needs blood. 1 in 7 people entering our hospitals are going to need it. And here's the scary one. 1 in 2 women and 1 in 3 men in the United States will develop cancer in their lifetime. If you are going to fight cancer with chemo and radiation, you are going to have to replenish the red blood cells and platelets that treatment destroys. That takes about 8 units a week just for cancer treatment. A bypass is about 5 units. The trauma that I mentioned earlier, so a car accident or a gunshot wound is typically a 50-unit event. Liver transplant, we average almost 1 a day in this service area, is nearly 100 pints. That's almost 30,000 units a year just going to liver transplants at the 2 level 1 trauma centers that we support, which is LLU and USC Keck. So here's some common myths, and I get these questions a lot, so I've decided to put in a slide. One that we hear more often than you would think is that it makes you gain weight. Blood donation has the opposite effect. You lose about a pound. You have to burn more calories to replenish what you've donated. And the other one is, well, I have a tattoo, I can't donate. That's no longer the case. The FDA has relaxed those regulations for a little while now. If you receive a tattoo from a licensed parlor in the state of California and it's healed, you're free to donate blood. If you've received one that's from an unlicensed place, we ask that you wait 3 months and then you can donate. So those rules are relaxed. Here are our collections over the past 3 years, and what this points out pretty clearly is that the hospital demand has consistently outpaced our collections. As the population has grown, we are not able to keep up with that demand. That makes us a net importer of blood. And in fact, just this morning, we flew in 142 units because we didn't have the units on the shelf to support the hospitals when they needed it. I am excited to say that the Beaumont blood drives have been operating since 2008, and last year over 1,000 pints, 1,442 pints were collected in Beaumont, which is fantastic for a city of this size. I'm here to challenge Beaumont for 2,000 pints. I think Beaumont can get there. I think that the show of support in this room is much different than other city councils that I visit. I think the community is active enough, and I think with the city's help, as you already promote blood donation, we can get to 2,000 units for Beaumont this year. I'll close with this. If anybody has questions about how to donate blood, how to host a blood drive, I ask you to visit livestream.org, or lstream.org, excuse me. All of the answers to those questions are there. You can find our contact information. You could submit a request to host a blood drive. And that's really my ask of the council this evening, is that you are influential people, you know other influential people, and if you can lend your voice as an advocate to blood donation and ask those friends of yours that own businesses or operate civic organizations to host a blood drive, especially in the summer, it really helps. The summer months are our lowest. Before I take questions, I will introduce Suzanne Boswell, who's the regional account manager for this area. Many of you know her. We're so glad that she's on the team, and her contact information is on the screen. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Can I answer any questions?
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Mr. Finn?
Yes, I'll give a personal example, and then it'll go along with the question. So I'd served in the military and served in Germany, and I was banned due to the mad cow scare. And I just recently found out that I could give blood again, so I'm excited to do that. I'm sure there are other things that may have banned someone in the past, like you mentioned, the tattoos and so forth. Is it the website that they can go to find that out on, and is there enough information there? Or do they need to pick up the phone and call, or?
They can call 1-800-TRY-GIVING anytime. We have a team that can answer those questions. The questions are on the website. There's 44 questions that must be answered according to the FDA. You can find those on the website. Some popular ones that I'll dispel is if you were on testosterone replacement therapy, you can't donate blood. That's no longer the case. You can absolutely donate blood. Also, even type 2 diabetics now can donate as long as that diabetes is under control.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service.
Oh, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you for the presentation. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up on the agenda is the public comment period. Any one person may address the city council on any matter not on this agenda. There's a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Anyone in person wishing to speak can do so by filling out a form at the back of the room and handing it to a staff member. Nicole, do we have any public comments?
Yes, sir. We have 3 in person.
Okay, and let's go ahead and get started with that.
First speaker is Renee Boyd.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman. I just wanted to personally thank the City of Beaumont for our flag installation. Ms. Anita Wortham came out from your Veterans Committee, and on a Wednesday, and by Flag Day, the following week, our flag was reinstalled. So I wanted to say thank you. It took them 2 years, but you guys got it done in less than a week. I also wanted to thank the Chief of Police for providing officers for our town hall meeting tomorrow, and for also making a personal appearance at our facility to address some of the concerns that we have regarding security for that particular property. So we'll give you guys a follow-up after tomorrow to keep you guys up to date on what's going on. And I also wanted to volunteer either for the police department and/or your Veterans Committee, because you guys are doing an awesome job, and I want to be a participant in that. So thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anita, for helping out. And Chief, thank you. Next.
Next speaker is Robert Boyd.
Good evening, everyone, and some of you I've been able to thank personally, But I want to thank you guys because we've gotten more response from the owners and the management company than we've ever gotten. We've been there since the complex has been first opened. And we really appreciate that. They're addressing our concerns that we have. And I'm actually glad that it took this to do it because it opened a lot of doors to me. So thank you, and I really appreciate you guys' help on behalf of all the veterans that are still going to be there after this thing is done.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Next speaker is Anita Worthen.
Thank you very much. Of course, I'm here to speak on behalf of the veterans and what we do with our Veterans Expo services. And that concludes, that's with the veterans, military, family, and friends. And I want to thank the city of Beaumont for all the help that they give us. We're getting ready to have another Veterans Expo in January, and I thank Elizabeth for working with us on that, and I thank the City Council. So keep us involved. We have meetings on Zoom, even though we haven't done anything in the last, so far as having the Expo in the last 2 years because of the COVID, but we're getting ready to do that again, and I want to thank the Mayor, Lloyd White, for actually listening to me and picking up my calls that I'm always calling him about our veterans groups. But please, please know that we're here simply because we actually love our veterans, military, family, and friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Worden.
Katie, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers on the line.
No other comments.
Okay, thank you. Next item, item number 3, discussion and direction regarding draft letter to the California Public Utilities Commission, the CPUC, and the Federal Railroad Administration, requesting an investigation into the Union Pacific Railroad incident on June 15th, and the staff report is by me.
Or me, either one.
I'll let you go because I don't have the report right here.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you are all aware, we had an incident involving the UP Railroad here in Beaumont last week. So the California Public Utilities Commission and the Federal Railroad Administration oversee rail operations throughout the United States. The incident on June 15th involving an immobile UP Railroad train which blocked 3 of our major thoroughfares was well over 6 hours, and we are requesting an investigation be conducted into this incident. Attached are 2 letters, one to each agency. These letters describe the incident and the hazardous situations caused by the immobile train, and more specifically, their lack of response to our outreach throughout the incident. The action requested tonight is to discuss the letters and to provide direction to staff on this matter.
Okay, thank you. So in preparation for this discussion, we've also asked the city staff to put together a list of all the projects that we have that are in the works, and many of them have been in the works for a couple of years. I don't think a lot of people recognize how long it takes to get some of these projects done, but we are working on those. So before we go any further with discussion about the letters, I'd like to open this up to public comments, if we have any public comments.
Yes, sir. First speaker is Mike Simon.
And friends. In the 70s, I had the opportunity to work for Southern Pacific Railroad as a brakeman. And to go back a little bit, the rule of thumb was if you had to block an intersection, a thoroughfare, more than a half an hour, you must brake the train at that point. Now, there's plenty of helper engines throughout the system. They could have brought one up. And their excuse of their people running out of time They know what time they're run out by the minute, by the second. They could have had a crew out there long before that. Luckily, I only know of one major incident. There was a young gal that was going into labor, stuck on Pennsylvania. Luckily, she got turned around and got to where she had to go to send one to get down to Redlands. But like I said, the railroad needs to take full responsibility for that because somebody dropped the ball big time. Southern Pacific was bought up by Burlington Northern and bought up by Union Pacific. So the bigger the railroad gets, the trains get longer. There used to be a mile train long, then they go to 2, now they're up to 5 miles. And if you live in Capizon, you're dead meat. There's only 2 roads that go in and out, and they're always blocking that. So I've approached Jeff Hewitt many times about talking to the railroad, and it's fallen on deaf ears. But something has to be done, because until we get those roads straightened out and those overpasses done, we're gonna run into this problem again, big time. So maybe the city of Beaumont has enough clout to, and the Transportation Association might be able to light a fire on these people and refer them to the fact that if they're gonna block, they get a break in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simon.
Next speaker is Sonia Gross.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Sonia Gross.
Okay.
Good evening. As a resident of Seneca Springs neighborhood, I'm concerned for my family as well as my own safety. Wednesday, June 15th, my husband and sons were trapped and unable to leave our neighborhood. I have several pictures of the parking lots of traffic they were subjected to. As a mother of 3 young boys here, their safety is of my top concern. Had they needed emergency treatment, the medical response would not have been able to arrive at our residence due to the train blocking all the Beaumont thoroughfares. The extra traffic from the road work on the 10 freeway, the non-working traffic lights as well, and the nonstop traffic that uses our neighborhood as a diversion from the 79. Firefighters and ambulance or police would not be able to respond to emergencies in an urgent and timely manner. We are paying citizens of this town and deserve to have access to our emergency services. When I called the city to inquire about the situation, I was told it was the perfect storm. I understand that there were issues with the train and the stoplight, and I was told that as a solution, they are widening Pennsylvania. Our Beaumont city representatives, we need to do better for the city. There have been several other times when trains have blocked the roadway there as well, either misjudging where to stop or having mechanical issues. This was not the only issue, but it was the longest in duration. The trains were moving around 9 p.m. when I came home later that night. Fridays are always atrocious in that area due to the traffic from the 79. People decide to come through there instead of Beaumont Avenue. So widening Pennsylvania, that will help somewhat, but that's not the solution. We need an underpass urgently, because if these trains stop again, if this happens again, we're gonna have more people stuck there. My mom was stuck on that side of the tracks, and she has medication that she needed to get to, and she couldn't get there. Our traffic is simply not from our Beaumont residents, but also from other people utilizing our neighborhood to bypass the Beaumont Avenue traffic off the 79. This issue needs to be addressed at the city council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie, do we have any callers on the line?
I do. I'll transfer them now.
Caller, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you're on the line with City Council. Go ahead.
Yes. My name is Malia Ortloff, and my husband and I are residents of Beaumont, and we live on the south side of the freeway. The recent incident with the railroad caused more questions than answers. Why are there 3 train thoroughfares instead of bridges is the first question. It seems that the answer is always a widening project and elevation change for the train is in the works. How can we get a better timeline to be established for this much-needed project? The second question is linked to the incident of June 15th, and it's in regards to the proposed Amazon warehouse that will be built in Banning. Since the truck traffic will likely not simply exit the freeway in Banning, but also Beaumont, our question to the council is this: how will the city of Beaumont how are they planning for the proposed increase in traffic? We would also like to confirm the rumor that the environmental impact report was created during the COVID-19 shutdown, and how is this in the best interest of citizens in the community to create a report regarding traffic flow when the traffic was nearly non-existent? Anyone who lives within this community knows the nature of the traffic in the city, and adding truck traffic to an already strained infrastructure will certainly cripple transportation in the city and negatively impact the residents. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Katie, any other callers?
No other callers.
No other comments.
Okay, before I go to council discussion, we have Michael Bailey, who's with Congressman Ruiz's office. Did you want to say a few words, or, okay?
Good evening, everybody. Let me start with my name. So I'm Michael Bailey. I'm from Congressman Raul Ruiz's office. Michael Bailey from Congressman Raul Ruiz's office. I'm local. I'm one of those people that uses the First Street to cut through, so I understand that the stoppage was more than just unfortunate. I want to thank Mayor White for reaching out to me in your office immediately after the incident. City Council, thank you for having me here, and administration for meeting me yesterday so we can talk about the things we can do to help this problem the next time it happens. I am permitted at this time to read a statement from the congressman, who not only is a congressman but was a practicing doctor. So the EMS issues are very large on his mind when we know that EMS can't immediately get to parts of the cities. Last week's traffic jam in the Pass area caused by a stopped Union Pacific train is outrageous, and Union Pacific's lack of timely response is alarming. The massive delays surrounding this event and the lack of communication from Union Pacific are unacceptable. That is why I'm calling on their leadership to come to the table and identify solutions to ensure that this incident never happens again. To that end, a letter has been sent out today to the Union Pacific leadership, naming all the points that I just mentioned, as well as setting a date for them to respond to us, would be July 5th, and having a sit-down with the congressman. As soon as we hear back from them, I will liaison with you guys to let you guys know what the answer is. I appreciate your time. I apologize on behalf of the congressman that he's not here to be able to say it to you himself. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. All right. At this point, I'll open this up for discussion for council. I'd like to start by, first of all, my biggest concern with this, there's a lot of concerns over the projects that we're working on and how fast we're getting things done or not getting things done. And I don't want to come off as if I'm making excuses. My biggest concern here was our lack of communication with Union Pacific. And we did everything we could to reach out to them to get a good understanding of where they were as far as the repair of the train. And from everything that I have learned, they were not responsive at all. And so I do appreciate the congressman taking that approach, and we do need to get answers from Union Pacific, and we need to work out a better plan for next time. Just not to dwell too much on the history, but City of Beaumont went through some major financial concerns and issues back in 2015, and at that point, council learned that the City of Beaumont was broke, and we had run out of money in 2008. Regarding a lawsuit that was between WRCOG, which is the Western Riverside County of Governments, and the City of Beaumont, we were not receiving any of our Measure A money, which is our street repair money. We were able to, after a number of arrests and negotiating with WRCOG, we were able to negotiate a very good solution with WRCOG that enabled us to start receiving our repair money almost immediately. And if you've noticed, if you've lived here long enough, you know that there were many, many years before streets were being repaired, and we're going through and we're repairing all of those. We have put together a transportation projects at a glance to let people know that we understand the infrastructure issues here. There's a lot of concerns, and I've heard a lot of people talk over the last week or so about building houses and, you know, not doing our infrastructure. House building is something that we have all tried to do what we can to build houses responsibly and meet with our infrastructure needs, and we have not been able to. A lot of these housing developments were entitled years before any of us got on council, but I can tell you this council has done everything in our power over the last 4 or 5 years to put these projects in place. The grade separation, Mr. Hart, if you could speak to that, just an idea on the cost of the grade separation. I think some people don't realize the cost of that. And I know you did a presentation very similar to this a couple meetings ago for our budget workshop. But if you wouldn't mind, just sort of let's address the Pennsylvania widening project and the grade separations. By the way, Mr. Hart is our city engineer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Council. So the Pennsylvania grade sep, an item on tonight's agenda is the adoption of the annual budget and the Capital Improvement Program, or the CIP. The funding, we have lacked funding in order to complete the design engineering for the grade separation project. And with the adoption of a budget tonight, we will be able to engage our consultant to complete that. The schedule looks, I received a schedule last night from IDC, who was a consultant. Should the budget be adopted tonight, you'll see a contract amendment in July in order to allow them to proceed. And we're looking at completion within about 16 to 18 months of all the design. The project at a state level is environmentally exempt from a CEQA perspective, but we lack construction funding. And so estimates as of now, or as of, about 12 to 18 months ago, was about $40 million for the grade separation project. Things like working with the congressman's office and being proactive in reaching out can certainly help those, but as of now, the construction is currently unfunded. Pennsylvania widening is currently out to bid. We are on a concurrent path with some permitting through Caltrans and some regulatory permitting. We've since got Edison to actually schedule the relocations that need to happen in order to get that project commenced. So we are looking at awarding a contract in, in August, and kicking the project, actually breaking ground in September or somewhere there, September, October. There's a few others, but I don't know if you have.
The Second Street, if you can talk about Second Street.
Second Street is we will be, we're looking to approve the final engineering on Second Street extension, which takes it from an existing terminus right now, kind of just in front of the Kohl's or the storage area. It will extend it westerly to Pennsylvania Avenue. Engineering should be completed within July, and we're looking to take an environmental document to council early fall for adoption. There is also funding for construction within that in your CIP tonight. Should we be able to have that approved and get all the environmental clearances, we can look at advertising this project at the very beginning of next year.
Okay, and the CIP and all the budgeting we're doing for these projects, it hasn't happened in the last week. It's something that we've had in motion.
Yeah, the CIP process started several months ago.
Okay. And finally, we're coordinating with the city of Banning and RCTC on the Highland Springs interchange. Can you speak to that?
Right, so we have there's a three-party agreement, a cooperative agreement with RCTC, which is the Riverside County Transportation Commission, the city of Banning, and the city of Beaumont on an interchange upgrade for Highland Springs. We have completed the first phase of that, which is called a PSR. It's a project study report. It takes a high-level look at different options and selects what make the most sense, and many times a non-build to move on to the next option. An RFP was developed by RCTC, but City of Beaumont staff and Banning also sat on the selection committee. And this month, County Board of Supervisors is taking an item for the next phase to a professional services agreement with Mark Thomas for the project approval and environmental documentation. That is about a 24-month, this is typical for almost interchange statewide, you know, a significant history, but it's about a 24-month process, the PAED phase. Once the PAED phase is completed, we will move on to what's called the plan specifications and engineering, which is about another 18 to 24-month phase. Funding for those RCTC has pledged some assistance with that, but we do not have funding for construction. We don't have a defined alternative. I think it's likely from the options we've looked at that the diverging diamond makes the most sense, but that will formally come out of the project approval and environmental documentation step that we are currently about to kick off.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on council have any questions for Mr. Hart?
I do.
Sure, Mr. Lara.
Mr. Hart, on the grade separation for Pennsylvania, I know that we've got the engineering or the approval to fund the remainder of the engineering. Once the engineering plans are complete, is it another 24 months to get the review, or what would be the timeframe that we'd be looking at? Should we get funding?
Yeah, I mean, should we get funding, we could be in a position to, you know, potentially begin construction in early 2024.
Okay.
You know, as we discussed, I think, you know, several times previously, is you're in a much better spot to acquire funding when you are shovel ready. So sometimes there's a delay there, but we certainly would not wait until we were completely finished with the engineering design to start chasing after funding. It just puts you in a much better position for many of the eligible grants if you are.
And as I understand it, the critical thing about us approving the funding to complete the engineering is that will make this project shovel ready.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Which are more likely to get grants, bonds, and things like that when they're set up to be shovel-ready projects. Is that correct?
Yes, so the approval of the funds this evening would have this project ready to go in about 18 months.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Hart.
Okay. You good? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hart. So I've read the letters, and I'm comfortable with where they are. I wanted to know if anyone else had any questions or suggestions to the letters to the CPUC, and the other one was the FRA, I believe. Is there any questions or comments on those? Sure, Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, first I want to make a comment and thank the PD and staff for the quick response that we did. You know, the chief set up the incident command center quickly, and we did what we could to make sure that safety was priority. So even though I know the frustration was just something that was unbearable, safety was always the number one concern. We wanted to make sure that the situation was not where it would harm. We wanted to make sure that we did have routes that we could get to. We wanted to make sure that our officers were where they needed to be, and that was all the first part of it. And, you know, it was coupled with the frustration with the communication, or I should say the lack of communication we had with the railroad, which made things difficult. But that was our focus first, and I just want to reassure the public that it's always safety first. And I know that it was unbearable to be in, but we wanted to make sure that we knew what was going on. And it was not really easy to figure that out because we didn't have that communication. So we did the best we can, but the chief and his PD did an excellent job of making sure that we were comfortable knowing that the public was safe. And then once we got that, then we went into, okay, let's see if we can mitigate some of the traffic and start to move people around. So even though that phase got a little late and some would like to have seen that quicker, the priority first was safety. And some of our officers did get stuck in that as well, so it was difficult to get them to where we needed to get them to. So once we got all those logistics out of the way, then we wanted to make sure we moved into trying to mitigate those traffic patterns. So we want to thank everyone for their patience. We understand, you know, some of the flaws. I'm going to ask Chief and staff to go over and make sure that we evaluate and reflect what went wrong and what we could improve on to make sure we're better on our side, you know, and in case something like this happens again. But I am in support of the letters because the only way to get something like this done is with help from Congressman's office, because we've tried, other cities have tried. So not only am I in support of this, I would like to see the city reach out to other public agencies and entities to see if we can get a larger voice that the congressman can take with him in order to voice with the railroad. Because, you know, it really is inexcusable to have the lack of communication. I mean, if you've read some of the documentation we've sent out, there wasn't even acknowledgement by them that this was even occurring as we told them it was occurring. And that's just inexcusable. Those are the type of things that this letter will help hopefully address, that we can sit down and have those discussions. But also, again, on the other side, I want to make sure that from our end as city, that we've done, and we think that we've done everything we could have done. I believe we did. I looked at everything. I'm comfortable with that, but I still want a reflection and just kind of a self-analysis of what we might need to work on, just to make sure we can improve that even more efficiently. So thank you, and I am in support of the letters.
Okay.
So thank you.
Sure, Mr. Lar.
I just wanted to echo Councilmember Martinez's comments as well. I do appreciate the fact that the officers stayed late, even though their shift was over, to ensure that we had appropriate coverage as we transition with folks stuck in traffic. I also appreciate the rapid response that our administrative office had in regarding reaching out to Union Pacific Railroad, putting together these letters. I want to thank Congressman Ruiz's office. Thank you, sir, for coming down so quickly. You went through the project yesterday, or the site, and you're here tonight again to follow up, and so we appreciate that very much. I had my wife, my daughter, and 2 grandkids, 1 and 3, that were stuck also. It's a little frustrating or helpless, I guess, is the word that I would use on my end. So I am very passionate about these letters. We will make sure that our voice is heard. We, as a group up here, are very dedicated to infrastructure. We have been since we've been on council. Unfortunately, it takes time and it takes a lot of funding, but that won't deter us from getting this done. We're wrapping up a $100 million wastewater treatment plant expansion that was required, that we had to build because we were at capacity when we got on council. So there are several things that we continue to work on. We will continue to make sure that this community continues to thrive. I do want to comment on the response that the public had with one another as they worked through this traffic jam, or this nightmare. My wife calls it Carmageddon 2022. But we had no incidents or report of any malicious fights, accidents. Everybody was kind, which is the kind of people that we have here in town. And so I just want to comment to the people that were stuck in there that I appreciate their patience. And more than that, I appreciate their courtesy to one another as we work through this difficult time. So that's all I have, Mayor, and I do support the letters, and looking forward to seeing what kind of response we can get. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Mr. Finn.
Thank you. I want to echo the comments that were made, especially Mr. Lara's, about the public. I was caught in it, and it took me an hour to get out of there. And from my perspective, I tried to pay attention to my surroundings and what was going on, and the citizens were patient and they were cooperative, and that was nice to see. We had a couple folks that would cheat their way in, but there were no incidents that I had seen, and I was appreciative and proud that we've got good neighbors, and they showed that in their actions. I do have a question, though. Does it make sense for staff to reach out to either RCTC or RTA and ask for their support in this effort as well, with public transportation and busing and so forth, them transporting in the elderly and so forth? Let's rally the troops and see if we can get some more help. And just an extra thank you to Congressman Ruiz's office. Thank you for helping out with that. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we're squeaking pretty loud right now. So we appreciate all the efforts that's gone into it. I didn't see it in the staff report, and I didn't get a chance to go quite into detail as I was hoping to, but a question for Chief. I got off on how I got trapped in it. I was heading westbound on the 10 freeway and got off on Highland Springs, and as soon as I turned left, I was like, oops, I'm in trouble. That's where I saw 2 traffic officers, or two officers directing traffic. Was it that signal only that was out, or did they shut that off due to the problems that were going on? Because I saw The westbound on-ramp to the 10 freeway shut down due to construction, but that was the only visible place that I saw police officers, but that was the only traffic light that I saw that was out.
Yeah, Chief, I have a couple questions too. If you could come to the podium, please.
Because one of the complaints that I got from some constituents was they didn't see enough, police, presence, but we had the shift change issue and all that kind of stuff and so forth. So that's where I saw officers and had that question.
Right, so that signal was shut off by Caltrans, and that was related to their project. Once we got officers in place, we had them at multiple locations on Highland Springs Avenue. So in order to, to clear a street, like I mentioned, so like let's take, we can talk about Highland Springs or Beaumont might be a good example as well, but I'll talk about both. But if you put one officer at one intersection, there's nowhere to move them to, right? So what you have to do is get all your officers at each of the main choke points and then have the communication, which we had multiple officers there because I was listening to it. And then we just started pushing everybody north. So if you went into the 1 lane, we forced you to go north. And if you were in the 2 lane, we forced you to get on the freeway and go east. For example, Beaumont Avenue, we needed 3 officers. We needed one at 4th, 5th, and 6th. So we can start pushing traffic in one direction at a time safely. When you think about it, with the amount of traffic, it's very dangerous to try to just put one officer somewhere anyways. They're not as visible as you'd think, and so we have to watch out for their well-being as well. Some of the officers we had stationed in critical points, and just as our resident said, if there was a medical emergency in Seneca Springs or Four Seasons, our officers are trained in first aid. And so we're a little more nimble than the fire trucks, and we can get to places that they can't. So we had officers not only stationed just visibly in the Walmart parking lot, and that was for a couple reasons. One, civil disobedience or any type of looting deterrent, but also just strictly for 911 or emergencies. And like you said, thankfully, there were no physical altercations, but they were there. And I can understand where that could lead to some frustration because the public may think, well, they're just sitting there, but and they're not helping. But we have to look at each problem from that 30,000-foot level, and we can't just focus in on the micro. We have to see the macro too. And I understand their frustration, but as the Mayor Pro Tem said, we have to come and kind of get it all at once. If not, if we interject ourselves too soon, we really become part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, and I appreciate that because we can only see, 100 yards ahead of us,
Right.
And so forth. So I appreciate that, and I know obviously there's work that goes on behind the scenes, and I appreciate the explanation on that.
You're welcome. And I will say to Mayor Pro Tem's comment, we in the police department do a incident debrief after every single major incident. And we evaluate ourselves critically, and we improve wherever we can, whatever the incident may be, whether it's a structure fire, this traffic congestion, a critical incident where we use force. We always examine what happened, the communication, and communication, probably not surprisingly, is always the number one. How well and how fast did we communicate to the right people to get the right things in place as swiftly as we could have? And a major part of this delay was the poor communication from the railroad, or I would even say the misleading communication from the railroad back to our 911 center, indicating we're 20 minutes away. Okay, that part's been fixed, now we've grounded the crew. Okay, we're 30 minutes away. And at that point, and I can wait for the questions, but at that point, you continue to think this is about to clear up, and the drivers are navigating it themselves. It's just slow and tight. And then, of course, the 5 p.m. commuter traffic came into town. And then, of course, that changed our scenario.
Thank you. That actually leads right into my first question, which was, this has happened before, not to this extent, but the train either blocks our avenues or breaks down. But we know that normally it's not along 6 8, 9-hour event.
Right.
And if at that time, if you act too soon and it turns out to be a 30-minute event, something such as that, where, as you talked about, as far as the motorists being able to navigate their way out of this, that creates problems for your department if you go full on expecting everything to be a 6 to 9 hour event. I mean, if you'd known this was a 6-hour event ahead of time,
Right.
you would have, I think you would have addressed this differently. So if you could just sort of speak to that,
Sure.
and again, the importance of that communication with the railroad to know, what kind of event we're facing.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of layers there. One, if we knew it would be 6 to, I think, total of 8 hours, actually 7, from about 2 p.m. to as 1,400 and something hours to almost 9 p.m. But if we would have known this, then it wouldn't have been a 7-hour event, right? If we could shake that crystal ball and go, wow, this is going to go on for 7, then it wouldn't have, because then we would have interjected. The difficulty is we're handling, the public may not understand, we're handling many calls for service, especially these are our peak busy hours let's say about 10 a.m. to about 10 p.m., midnight, depending on, we're in summer hours now. But the 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. mark, we are the busiest. This is why we have a swing shift as well. And so we're handling many disturbances. We had some different traffic collisions, some medical aid calls. Like I say, we respond to many medical aid calls that I don't think the public's aware of, because we're out in the field. We're in our geographical beats and we're close and we can get there. And, as you've known, our officers have received many life-saving awards. And so the watch commander is trying to balance, okay, is this train going to start moving, or do I take resources from handling patrol calls, the 911s, and then divert them to traffic control? And in most cases, like you've said, the train stopped, but we haven't seen at Block 3 of our north-south. This train went from Pennsylvania to Cherry Valley Boulevard. Do I have that right? To Desert Lawn Drive. This is a 3-mile train. We haven't seen that previously. We're used to 1-mile trains. And now we're hearing these trains may increase to 4 miles. And we had an incident today, 2 incidents did not affect the city of Beaumont. We had a broken train in Banning. They have more grade steps. But then we had one in Santimel Canyon that blocked Live Oak Canyon, which is, a back route, exit route for Yucaipa. And there's a release there. And my understanding is that was 6 hours. And so we're going to see this more. So, now that the paradigm has shifted and we know that the length of these trains and the overload on the engines, and that's going to cause malfunctions, we're going to treat them differently. Because we can't trust the railroad to be responsible or really have an understanding of the impact on our residents. So we will take control. But, we just like I said, that 30,000-foot level, we're just trying to manage each of the, not only the crises, but the potential for crises in all the areas of the city.
And, I learned with working with you and the interim city manager, Elizabeth Gibbs, that afternoon, that evening, just communicating with you, I learned that we do have a plan. I think you referred to it as a hazmat plan. Something that we normally renew and revisit on a regular basis. And from what I've learned, we're about that time to renew and review that.
That's correct. That's in partnership with the Riverside County Emergency Management Department. We're renewing that. It was last approved by council March of 2019. But we do plan for railroads. Obviously, they bring a lot of flammables across those tracks. We have the I-10 corridor. We were actually in plans to determine with Riverside County if we were going to have to start bringing food to the stranded motorists, depending on how long it was going to take to break the blockade, if you will. And so there is a plan. That is a critical area to the city that we're well aware of. There's been some concern as ironic as it may sound, there's been some concern, well, what if there was a fire? What if there was another incident? What's interesting about that is, then when there's a fire to that scale, mutual aid is already activated with Riverside County Sheriffs, CAL FIRE, Highway Patrol, and the Banning Police Department. But the fire, you can watch that for hours coming, and then time is really on your side in those incidents because you're already evacuating, and you've already cleared those points in conjunction with your allied agencies, if that makes sense. So I know it brought out the worst fear of, hey, I was stuck, what happens if? But the way that this incident unfolded with the train coming in and then a delay in communication, I hate to say perfect storm, it was just that, but if there was a different incident, like when we know there's heavy rains that's gonna go on the burn scars, we have time to tell people to evacuate and move, right? Or when the fire comes up from the south, which it did a couple of years ago, the Manzanita fire and some other fires from the Banning side, we had an opportunity to assist Banning with Sun Lakes and then prepare to evacuate Four Seasons. So time is actually more on our side in some of those critical incidents.
And I would assume when we renew the plan that we'll take into consideration the 3 mile and 4 mile. lanes.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Definitely changed the paradigm.
all right. Thank you, Chief. Are there any other questions for Chief?
Yeah, Mayor.
Mr. Santos?
Okay. Not actually questions in here, statement on the incident on that. I like to share my experience and Mr. From the Union Pacific, I do compliment on that the train was a mile and a half, then to 3 miles, to 5 miles now. And my experience back in the 80s and the 90s, during that time, it's just only a single, cart that they're pulling out in there. Now, what they're doing now is just a double deck. So there's a lot of, pressure on the railroad track in there. Now, he's my scenario in there. And I'm glad that, our representative from, Congressman Raul Ruiz is over here. My concern and I know everybody's saying that, what if this will happen again? Why? Because of the overload, just like you mentioned on this. And, there's a lot of pressure in there. What if another one, not if, it will happen, if there's a derailment in there, and if there's an earthquake in there, on that direction.
Yeah.
What will be our I call it an emergency strategic plan. I think just like the mayor, was saying that I think we have to renew on that. I think we have to prepare ourselves as a city on those kind of scenario. You mentioned about fire on that. I mean, our firemen will be ready for that and everything. But the derailment, earthquake in there, and incident in there for that kind of heavy load on on the track, we're not looking on 6 hours. We might be looking on a day or two on that. Now, here's the thing: infrastructures. Infrastructures is I think we have to educate our citizens on this. Going eastbound in here, that's why we've been working on the Potrero, interchange in there. And if you go on 4th Street, you could go all the way in there. That will clear on that side because there's no railroad track in there, and you could go on 60 or 10. Now, going east is the challenges in here. We have to work with the City of Banning to develop quickly the Sun Lakes Boulevard in there or Avenue. Anita knows that. I mean, on that side, that will connect to Sunset. They've been planning on this. I think we have to RCTC approve it, and I think we have to work together on this. To have outlet in there instead of only the Highland Springs. If we develop Highland Springs 2023 and 24, I don't know, he's smiling, he knows that. We will have a lot of challenges in Highland Springs. And now, what will happen now to, on our dear friend on Seneca Spring? I got a lot of good friends in there. The Four Seasons in there, I'm not saying that will get stuck. Now, I like to sit down and have that emergency strategic plan for that specific plan on that railroad track in there. So that's my 2 cents in there. And Mayor, I got my 3 minutes or 5 minutes.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Santos.
And we could comment quickly on, we actually had a train derailment there. You want to speak about that? And
Good.
they can respond when they want to respond, and Lieutenant Galetta will give you a quick update on that.
Hello.
Hello.
As the chief mentioned, there is a local hazard mitigation plan that's being currently updated. We're working hand in hand with our allied agencies, the Emergency Management Department, CAL FIRE, the Sheriff's Department, Manning Police. And these are plans that we create well in advance for just those types of incidents, train derailment. The way I look at this was a good precursor. It allows everybody in the room and in the community a moment to pause and say, what can I do to better prepare myself and my family? What supplies do I need? What supplies do I have? It really goes towards a self-assessment. So on that note, this was a preparatory incident. It helps us get better at response, and it helps the citizens better prepare, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We will have an earthquake, we will have a flood, we will have fires, there may be a train derailment, it's likely. The trains are getting longer, there's more stress, so as a community, we have to put our heads together and prepare. And the local hazard mitigation plan is a specific document that addresses those very things. And as the chief mentioned, when those things happen, there's a plan in place. We make the calls. Emergency operations centers are set up. Incident command is set up. And we are very well prepared for those.
Very good. Thank you for that. And then I will quick comment on the letter. I do support that. And then I think this is perfect for us now to, ask for those fundings and emergency thing to really, the state and the federal and the county to support any projects we have on Potrero and again on Pennsylvania on this. I mean, I think will be really proactive, but we've been doing it, endlessly, and we're fighting for it to have that. So the letter will let them be liable on the Union Pacific, and we know what's going on their how they carry and transport those goods in there, because they have the different materials that they carry. They got the I call it mine materials in there. Sometimes they cross each other, and the material goods. I mean, they have the animals too on that. Sometimes they cross to each other in there. That's why probably Anita, getting instead of 5 minutes, you'll be sitting in there waiting for 10 minutes on that railroad in Pennsylvania. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Santos.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Wheelwright. Thank you,
Thanks.
Chief. Do we have any additional comments?
I'll check on the phone lines.
Okay.
Katie, do we have anyone on the phone?
No one on the line.
No other comments.
Okay, great. So at this point, it was direction for the letters. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. So now we'll move on to the consent calendar. And items on the consent calendar are taken as one action item unless an item is pulled for further discussion here or at the end of action items. Approval of all ordinances and resolutions to be read by title only. Are there any items to be pulled for discussion? Do we have any comments on any of the consent agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve items 4 through 11 on the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Now we'll move to public hearings. Item number 12, fiscal year 2022-23 approval of GAN limit, citywide budget, and 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023-2027. And we have a staff report from Jennifer Eustachian.
Here we go. We are holding a public hearing this evening for approval of 3 items within the staff report. First is the GAN appropriation limit. The GAN limit was established by Proposition 4 to place limits on the amount of revenue which can be spent by all entities of government. Not all revenues are restricted by the appropriation, only those that are referred to as proceeds of taxes. The fiscal year 23 appropriations limit has been calculated at $110,645,062. And the city is well below the GAN limit for fiscal year 23. Second is the adoption of the fiscal year 23 citywide budget. There were 2 workshops held with the council to review the budget, one in April and one in May. The budget hasn't changed since the May meeting. Just to highlight, the fiscal year 23 general fund is a balanced budget with revenues exceeding expenditures by $7.3 million. The general fund budget also adds 23.5 new positions. The wastewater budget has no added positions and addresses needed capital projects and establishes a repair and replace fund. Third is the approval of the fiscal year 2023 through 2027 capital improvement plan and prior year project list. All new projects were presented within the budget workshops, and nothing new has been added since the May workshop. Capital improvement plan has been provided in your attachments as well as the prior year projects list. The proposed digital budget book is available on the city website and includes all 3 of these items. And attached to the staff report are 3 resolutions for each item for your consideration this evening. And Finance has prepared a budget doodly video that I would like to play for council, and that can be used as a tool for community engagement for the city's budget, if that is okay.
Yes, please.
Welcome to the City of Beaumont. We would like to talk to you about the city's fiscal year 2023 budget and what it does for our residents and businesses to help make Beaumont a great place to work, live and play. A budget is a plan that projects the amount of dollars the city will receive and the plan to use those dollars over the fiscal year to serve the community. City services provided from the budget include public safety, which include police and fire, parks and grounds maintenance, streets maintenance, finance, administration, permitting, transit, wastewater and more. The fiscal year 2023 budget has added new positions, vehicle replacements, new buses, street light and road maintenance, and other capital projects. To learn more about the city's budget, please visit us at www.beaumontca.gov/budget and click on the annual city budget 2022 to 2023. We hope to see you soon.
And with that, I'll open up to any questions that you may have.
Very cool. You're quite an artist. Do we have any comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No, no callers on the line.
No comments, but we'll still have to open and close the public hearing.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing at 7:09. And seeing that there are no comments, we'll close the public hearing at 7:10. And comments or questions from council for Ms. Eustachian? Sure, Mr. Penn.
So if we were to obtain funding for these large projects, the limits that are in here, that's accounted for, those projects are accounted for already, is that correct? Or?
Are you talking about the appropriation limit?
Yeah.
So that is only restricted on proceeds of taxes.
Oh, gotcha, okay, all right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr.
Quick
Santos?
comment.
Sure.
Quick comment. Well done. I mean, I review it, I got the binder and everything, and well done on this. I mean, including the 5 years you got in there. I really congratulate you, everybody in there. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I do appreciate the binder as well. I like the way everything was broken down by fund and by category and plan and stuff that I wasn't quite aware of in the past, and how it kind of all fit together. It was a little bit better visual for me. So thank you for that, and that did help explain more.
Okay, Mr. Lara. Okay, at that point, at this time, I guess we need a motion, correct?
And we can do all three together, correct?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move that we waive the full reading and adopt by title only resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont approving appropriation limit for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Waive the full reading and adopt by title only resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont, California, adopting an operating budget of expenditures for the period of July 1, 2022 to June 30, 2023. And waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont adopting a 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2022, 2023 to 2026 and 2027, and related prior year CIP project list.
I'll second.
Or roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item is a meeting of the Beaumont Successor Agency. Do we need to adjourn the council meeting to go in, or what do we do about the council meeting?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can call to order the meeting of the successor agency.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything with the council meeting at this time.
I think it automatically rolls
Okay.
into.
So I'll call the meeting of the Beaumont Successor Agency to order at 7:12. And item 13 is a resolution to request formal dissolution of the Beaumont Successor Agency from the Oversight Board. Staff report, Mr. Kyle Warsinski.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm really excited to bring forward this resolution for you tonight, as it really represents hopefully, I'm going to cross my fingers, the finish line of the dissolution of the former redevelopment agency. So it's taken us 10 years to get to this point in time. The state of California dissolved redevelopment agencies in 2012, and they set forth a punch list of different things that cities needed to do to dissolve. And within this last year, earlier this last year, we've completed all of those requirements. First was to satisfy all outstanding obligations, financial obligations that the former redevelopment agency had. So if you owed people money, or people that were affiliated with the RDA were owed money, those things needed to be taken care of, and those were taken care of a couple years ago. The second thing was that all properties owned by the redevelopment agency needed to be transferred or sold. And if sold, the proceeds from those property sales would go to the city and the other taxing entities throughout the city, and that formerly operated within the redevelopment agency area. So originally, when the RDA was dissolved, the city owned 3 properties, 2 of which comprised the sports park. So we were able to transfer those, I want to say almost immediately, but it was a couple years before we were able to transfer those. So the city retains ownership of the sports park. And then the third property was the 52 acres adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant, which City Council took action, and that deed was recorded and put that 52 acres for future sewer operation expansion into the city's name earlier this year. And then lastly is you had to not have any outstanding litigation. And we didn't have any litigation that was necessarily pending with the RDA. But what we did have was an outstanding balance of originally $2.8 million that the city owed to the state because money was spent that shouldn't have been. And we entered into a payment installment plan with the state of California. And I'm happy to say that the city did end up paying all of that off this fiscal year. After we submitted the staff report, the city did receive a letter from the state of California confirming that we have paid it off. I wanted to make sure that whether we thought we paid it off, they confirmed that we paid it off. So we have a letter from the state of California that says, yes, the city has fulfilled its obligations pursuant to that payment plan. So we're in the clear on that one as well. So with that, staff does recommend that we waive the full reading and adopt by title only resolution to formally request the formal dissolution of the successor agency from the Oversight Board and adjourn the meeting of the Beaumont Successor Agency, possibly for the last time, and reconvene the meeting of the Beaumont City Council. And I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay, so we're not going to collection then, correct? Okay, that was a little joke, but I will move the recommended action as you just read it out.
That's right.
I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Okay, and can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes, and at that, we'll adjourn the meeting of the Beaumont Successor Agency for the last time at 7:17. And we'll go back into our regular council meeting, and we'll now address the action items, starting with item 14, which is a cost allocation plan. And we have a staff report from Jennifer Eustachian on this one.
All right, there we go. The fiscal year 21 independent audit report contains an audit finding which concerns that the city has not had a formal cost allocation plan performed for charging of its costs to federally funded projects and has been a carryover finding since 2018. The City Council approved a contract on December 7th, 2021 with Revenue and Cost Specialists to complete a full cost allocation plan, and RCS has completed a cost allocation plan that the city can use to reimburse indirect costs from federal and state grants, and have also completed a cost allocation plan that will allow the city to allocate costs to funds and programs for their fair share of administrative costs based on current circumstances. And I believe we have Eric Johnson and Shu Tai from RCS here this evening on Zoom to have a presentation for you.
Good evening. Can everyone see us? Great.
We can, thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to be here through Zoom. I'm going to try to share my screen with you, and hopefully it works, the presentation. Are
Looks
you able
good.
to see the presentation?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, great, thank you. So a little bit about RCS. We've been in business since 1980, so that's 42 years that we've been celebrating our work. We pioneered the effort of matching revenues with the cost of the services, and we've provided over 200 studies for over 250 agencies in the 5 states. Eric Johnson has been with RCS for 30 plus years, currently serving as president, and he's served over 100 agencies. I myself have had 20 years of governmental experience from an analyst to a budget manager up to finance directors of various cities. So what is a cost allocation plan? A cost allocation plan is a plan which allows for the full cost of government programs by including all associated direct and indirect costs. A cost allocation plan distributes indirect costs to ensure that programs pay for all the services it receives. Here are some examples of direct costs. Direct costs are those that directly are budgeted and benefiting the specific programs such as salaries, benefits, supplies, and services. Indirect costs are those which are provide supporting services to multiple programs and none to the public. Examples of that include legal counsel, finance, human resources, IT support, insurance, records management, and facility operations. The next slide shows you an example of direct and indirect. So direct services in your budget could be patrol, investigation, dispatch, animal control, Some department finance department have bus passes, business license, so forth. Indirect provides accounts payable through all the departments, payroll for all the departments and funds, general accounting, provide recruitments, personnel services, risk management. So why allocate costs? They're all shared reasons, but they're the equitable sharing of costs. That's definitely one of the primary reasons that you want to make sure understand what they are. Identify the actual cost of services. When we talk about patrol services, we focus on the direct cost of the police officer, but we know there's a payroll part of that, risk insurance part of that. So this identifies the actual full cost of the services. This helps recover the cost to the general fund. The general fund provides services to enterprise funds, grant funds, and so forth. So now we can capture what those costs are. And we ensure accurate calculation of fully burdened hourly rate for the fee study. For the city of Beaumont, we met with all this administrative staff and we allocated out the services. And it's not as simple as city council providing one service, city clerk providing one service, administration or city manager's office providing one service. You can see in the administration, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different service areas. Council support, city administration, public information, reception phone services, department support, finance support, and city manager support. The task that we are responsible for is to identify how do we allocate out these services. And the column on the right, you can see city council support, we split it up, 50% budget and 50% agenda. And that seems to be the most reasonable way to determine that cost. City administrations by adjusted budget, public information, it's most reasonable to do by adjusted budget, reception phone service, adjusted budget. Department support, when we spoke with the city manager's office, we determined that these are the 4 areas that this service provides to community development, building and safety, public works, sewer budgets. That's how we allocate out. Finance support, we say charge that to finance, and city manager support. Some staff in the city manager's office, administration, provide support to the city manager, so we allocate that back to the city manager's office. Here's another example. I just want to show you all of the cost allocated, the CAP services. So finance is interesting because it's quite varied, and we do have good data such as the purchase orders, the investment reports, the number of invoices. So we're able to allocate out services more accurately that way. Info, tech, through staff estimation, risk and HR, legal, building maintenance by facility square footage, parks and ground maintenance by square footage, and vehicle maintenance by vehicle maintenance records. So here are the results as it affects the general fund. As I mentioned before, we're very familiar with the budget. Public safety budget is $18 million, but that does not include the indirect costs or the allocated costs. And we identified $4.2 million, $4.3 million of indirect costs. So again, that's finance, IT, HR, city manager, risk, and so forth. Public works is $3.6 million with $1 million in cap costs. I'm going to pull community development, $2.3 million and $1.1 million. So community development, when we're moving towards this user fee study, we're going to see that a lot of the services provided by community development are user fees, development fees. And if we were only to capture the direct costs of $2.3 million, then the city is actually subsidizing the remaining $1.1 million. So it's good to capture both or at least identify the full cost of community development when developing the development fees. Here's the effect on other funds. Wastewater fund, $12 million, receiving $1.5 million in allocated costs. Transit fund, $2.5 million, and $883,000 in allocated cost. But this one's a little tricky because for the transit fund, there's one area that the transit fund provides vehicle maintenance for the full city. So with that $883,000, well, the general fund actually has to pay back or should pay or journal entry $324,000 back to the transit fund. And wastewater needs to commit to the vehicle maintenance as well. So the net charge to the transit fund should be $553,000. So I could spend 2 hours walking through this, but I'll try to do my best to explain the full report, which is in your budget. So I'm going to jump back and forth between here. And it's a good thing we have this. So the final allocation summary is exactly what it says. It's a summary of how much costs are charged. So let's go here. And here's the allocation summary, and there are different tabs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can see here, as an example, I highlighted and surrounded all the public safety related costs. And you can see animal control, 122,000, police, 3.167 million. Total is the 4.281. And as a former finance director, I want to know exactly what is this $3.167 million. So that's where you would go into the detail. I would scroll down. And then I'm actually going to jump over to make it faster for us. So here's the police. And I wanted to know what is this $3.167 million. And you can see that the police receives a lot of services from the various departments, administrative departments, as well as, the CAP services here. City council is a certain dollar amount and so forth. So what I do is I skim through and say, what is the biggest number? And you can see here, risk management, risk in HR, risk management, receiving $1,044,000. So I'm curious about what does that mean? What is that $1,044,000 and how does that compare to all the other ones? So the next tab here is the allocation factor, which I showed you already. And I'm going to scroll here. So CAP 23 risk management is 50% claims and 50% budget that we showed earlier. So I want to go into the details about that. Going back to like, what does that amount make? How do you get to that amount? So the next tab here, it shows risk management is $1.835 million. So let's go to detail, like what does that mean, 1.835 million? Going to scroll here. So this is what it's made of. Insurance and claim costs, that's operating expenses, $1.75 million. There's a little bit of FTE, a little bit of administrative service director, a little bit economic development manager in there. So that's how the starting cost is. Now, how does that spread out? We talked about the 50% budget, 50% risk. So here we go, and I'm going to close this up so you can see more. So here's CAP 33, the discussions, 50% claim, 50% budget. Here's where the total is. And let me know, I hope you could see it, that here's the $1.835 million. And this is how it's allocated out by the percentage of 50% budget, 50% claims. So you go up here and you highlight this column. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to do that. And there's where it shows the 1.4. So it's all allocated out in various methodologies and logic from that. And then from here, I'm going to jump back to the report because I think that's where I want to keep it high level. So what RCS did is we provide the city of Beaumont with both a full cap and an OMB cap, and I'd like to talk a little bit of difference between it. So definitely the full cap, it uses the current budget numbers, and we use the estimate of time for staff that we just talked about, and we allocate all the administrative costs, and that gives you the full cost of providing services. It's used to calculate the overhead for the fee study and to help transfer the full administrative costs from other non-grant funds. So the OMB, or the federally accepted cost allocation plan, it uses actual audit expenditures. It requires timesheet if you want to split out staff. As I showed in the example for the city manager's office, the administration and finance and budget, staff provides a very numerous services, but for OMB, you have to have timesheets to split out at that level. So it has to be very simple. Does not allow for general government costs such as city council, city clerk, and city manager. It is used if you want to recover more administrative costs than the base amount, including grants. Typically, some grants provide only 20% administrative costs. Our studies find a higher percent, which allows staff in the city to retrieve or recover a higher percent for that. OMB rules limit administrative costs applied to departments and funds, and it's required in order to receive state and federal grants. And I just want to show this audit finding. I'm not going to repeat this because I'm sure that Mr. Station has already presented that to you. And here's our finding for the OMB cost allocation plan. As I mentioned before, typically, if not calculated, the federal government has a certain rate, and this is the rate we came up with if you want to exceed that amount. And here's another area that I want to show is the OMB cap. We focus on only $5.9 million of indirect costs, while the full cap captured $10.3 million. If we were to apply the OMB cap to the fee study, then approximately $5 million of services is not accounted for. So that's why we build the full cap in determining the user fee study. Related to that, the next step is the fee study. So we developed the full cost allocation plan that will help us build the overhead rate and the fully burdened hourly rates. And with that, we will identify the full cost of services, both tax services as well as personal choice services, such as development services, public works, utilities, finance, and so forth. And with that, Eric Johnson and I are here to answer any questions.
Thank you. And do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No, we don't have anyone on the line.
Okay, and just a reminder to council that if you turn your light on, then I know that you want to speak. As long as I can see, I can't see your light, Mr. Santos, if you could pull your microphone out a little bit more. Perfect, thank you. So at this point, do we have any questions or comments for Ms. Eustachian? Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, just real quickly, just so I can understand. So this new full plan then developed a whole new plan for the federally funded projects and then updated the current plan that we had already for the administration, other ones.
Right, yeah, our current plan we have was back in 2016, so it hadn't been updated in a while. So that gives us a better idea of what your programs and other funds should be giving back to the general fund.
Federal funded one.
And it
then.
didn't have a federal
Okay.
funded one. Mhm.
All right, and it says here that staff will be able to use the software now from going on
Correct.
doing our own plans. Will we need to hire consultants in the future periodically, or would we be able to handle future plans now?
We will get the software, and RCS is also available for services if we should need them.
Okay, and we don't need another personnel. Our current staff is able to use what we have. after
Right, yeah,
training.
they will come, once everything is done, they will come on site. They will train staff how to use the software, so we can update it.
Perfect, very good. Thank you so much. That's all.
Mr. Lara?
Just a couple of quick questions. On the, it's page 5 of 54. They include police at 20.71%, but we don't include fire. Is that, can you explain why that is, fire is not included or they're excluded?
Well, we contract with their fire, right? So it's not included for that. But there's also certain items that are within your federal plan that you're not allowed to do, which would be like city manager time or council time is not allowable as a part of the OMB. So that's not included in your final plan for your federal awards.
Okay. And one of the things I couldn't follow, maybe you, I know that when you look at building maintenance, that was probably the easiest one that I could figure, it's based on square footage. Is it based on square footage that the department occupies?
So yeah, it's broken down in a few ways. So it's broken down by square footage and then further broken down by FTE. And RCS has created a spreadsheet that kind of calculates what is allocated based on the square footage and also the FTE counts for the departments, and it gets allocated through that way.
Okay, so that's why you could have a department that's got a larger square footage that is showing less money because of the FTE?
Well, right, and you also have, it's all city facilities, so it could be if you have, say, fire station, right? So that's all,
Right.
that's only for fire, but then if you have city hall, it's shared space. So then you have to figure out a way that you could allocate those shared spaces, and that's why it's broken down by FTE.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience with me too as well. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Santos.
Yeah, just like to follow up on the example you got in here on the risk management, and you got the allocation. I like that. I mean, you broke down everything in there. And my quick comment is the if I go on the on the legal budget in there, and does it do allocations on that on by case or by what the legal our legal person or company that charging us on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis on that when we do the budget? Is it also possible to show all the breakdown in there?
So it was allocated based on the legal budget, I believe, is what the allocation factor is.
Yeah, I saw that legal budget in there.
Right, right. Judy, you want to explain more on the breakdown of that?
Absolutely. So it's actually broken down by adjusted budget. There are cities out there, clients out there who keep track of legal costs by departments and programs. And if we have that, then we would question them and see, is this consistent year after year? Is your data consistent and accurate? And if it's not, then we do have other methodologies. And for Beaumont, we use adjusted budget, meaning that the water fund, police fund are the larger budget and therefore have more issues involving legal. And that's why they have a bigger share of the city attorney's budget. The common ways to allocate our costs are full-time equivalent, FTEs. When you're doing payroll, you would say each employee gets a check, so payroll send it out that way. Adjusted budget is another example where if there's more risk, more services, more costs within the program, then it receives a bigger portion of that. Square footage is another good example, as Councilmember Lara talked about that, how many employees are within a certain square footage area, and we divide it up that way.
Okay, I mean, because our, on the legal side is we're doing a outside services on this. That's the where I'm getting at on the cost allocation, and you're doing perfect. I mean, I like the way you put it together, the cost allocation. Been doing that for 40 years, so That's good. That's excellent. And, if we could go a little bit deeper on that, on that risk management, also on, I just, pick up the, legal cost in there, and because it fluctuates. So, and on our side, it's, we got the allocation and a budget. If we'll be consistent on that, that'll be great. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, this says recommended action, review and approve both cost allocation plans. Do we need a motion to approve the cost allocation plans?
Yes, if you can,
Okay,
please.
so I'll make a motion to approve both cost allocation. Well, wait a second, I did have one question. So our next step is a fee study then?
Correct.
So is that process already started?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
And
it
how
is.
long do you think that will take before?
I believe we should be coming back at beginning of August.
Okay, great. Okay, so I will move to approve both cost allocation plans.
I'll second.
And a roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes, before we move on to item 15, I think we should take a break because we do have a number of items left. So we'll take about a 10-minute break. We'll come back at about 7:50, 7:55. What's that?
Way to read the tea leaves, boss.
We'll call the meeting back to order at 8:01. And we'll move on to item number 15, which is to approve business associate agreement with Keenan and Associates and the joint powers agreement with the Fire District Association of California Employment Benefits Authority, and a staff report from Carrie Mendoza.
You have the staff report in front of you. I've also had some follow-up questions that I was able to answer, I hope, in regards to these two agreements. We started negotiating insurance renewals about last August, September timeframe. Annually, we do that on a regular basis. Cigna decided not to renew our contract coming into 2022, so that kind of started the exploration of a partner, somebody to stand alongside Kaiser. So we went to bid, we got renewal documents, all kinds of wonderful things. We weren't exactly happy with the choices that were being presented to us. I reached out to Keenan and Associates because I'd kept in contact with them, and they're one of our providers that we do a lot of data and research with as it relates to compensation and insurance and what the norm is in government entities. They had brought us two potential pools as well as CalPERS a couple years prior, and however the city was not accepted into any of those pools. Excuse me, I shouldn't say CalPERS. CalPERS would have accepted us, but there were concerns about joining CalPERS at the time. So I sent our census data out like we do every year, just for a fresh look, tell me who could accept us. And the FDAC pool came back and said, yeah, we'll accept your members. It looks at age, level of utilization of your services, medical, dental, all those wonderful things. So we entered into an agreement where we started negotiating rates with them, took those rates back to our labor groups. They were satisfied. We brought Blue Shield in to stand in the place of Cigna. A little bit more affordable than the Cigna option, and we were allowed to still keep the Kaiser option, so it made our folks happy in the interim timeframe. It's a 3-year agreement that we remain with the FDAC pool, and the goal is to continue to provide more affordable options, including PPOs, high deductibles, things like that. Our employees want options, and unfortunately, as one small city with only we have about 150 employees that utilize the insurance. We're a little fish in a big pond. So this was a great opportunity for us to join a larger pool and bring more options to our employees. So you have the business associate agreement with Keenan because they're the primary contact, and they govern and then the JPA agreement with the FDAC. And so with that, I'd answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any public comments on this? Okay. So I have a quick question. We're going to the fire district
Authority of California.
authority, but not for fire. we
No,
don't
they
do
have
any of the fire
several
districts.
different entities that join. You don't have to be a fire district to join.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing no other questions at this time, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to authorize. Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the business associate agreement with Keenan Associate. Authorize the mayor to sign the first amended joint powers agreement to Fire Districts Association of California Employment Benefits Authority.
I'll second.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Finn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item 16, approve a 5-year subscription to Swiftly, a real-time general transit feed specification platform in an amount not to exceed $249,200. And we have Ms. Mendoza up again.
I'm here for a couple in a row. We've been using Double Map since 2013 in transit to provide our GPS tracking services. August 21, Caltrans came out with some new guidelines and recommendations to move forward with on real-time GTFS, so General Transit Feed Specifications. And my understanding is Swiftly and TransTime kind of own the lion's share of the market and are one of the sole source providers that can provide all of the requirements that Caltrans has put forth. It integrates with your Google Maps, I'll call it Siri Map, Apple Map, that sort of thing. So just like you and I can plug in an address and check out how long it's gonna take me to get there, you'll be able to do that with your bus route as well and figure out where your bus is at, when's it gonna be at your stop, and when are you gonna get to the next stop based on real-time traffic flows, et cetera. I have one change to the agenda item that I gave you. I put copies in the back of the room for anyone who's interested. Pages 482 and 483 are the actual order form. It's the Swiftly order form. I believe Hazel is probably still on Zoom if we have any questions. They made one 11th hour change, adding Trillium GTFS services. No change to the cost plan, or to the 5-year cost annual term. It's just a third party that will integrate anytime we change a route, build a new route. They will integrate that into the network technology, if you will, to ensure that that GTFS works properly. So they added that for no additional cost, changing some of the other pricing structure. Other than that, the contract amount doesn't change.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on this?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay, at this point, we'll go to council. Mr. Finn.
Yes, thank you. Carrie, is there any limitations on changes as the city continues to grow and so forth? And I'm sure routes will change. Is there a limit with that, or they just kind of, they're agreeing to do it as it comes up?
It's my understanding it's a 5-year agreement, and they will do the changes as they come up during the entire annual premium.
Okay.
Under
thanks.
that. And Hazel, like I said, Hazel might still be on Zoom.
Yes, I'm here.
There she is.
Yeah, so our pricing is based on a number of vehicles. So currently the city of Beaumont has 20 fixed route vehicles, and that is the, for the 5-year contract, that is the number of vehicles that we've priced out. So if there are, we can add incremental costs if there are additional vehicles throughout the duration of the contract, but any changes to the number of routes or the time of day that the routes operate or anything like that, that does not impact the cost.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, so Ms. Mendoza, it looks like right now this is being funded through the grant. Fully
Yes.
funded through the grant. So at the end of the 5 years, it will now then revert back to our budget, of course. Is that been put into the forecast models? Or will it be at some point in the future to see how the 50 or 60,000 a year will impact?
I would propose that it be part of the SRTP ongoing annually, and we look at what replaces that then.
Okay.
I don't believe it's in the 5-year long-term model.
Okay, but all right, it will be. That's all I need.
I would
Thank
venture to guess, based on the technology turnover, there'll be some newest, latest, and greatest
Yeah,
guideline we'll have to move to, and
Exactly.
we'll have to go through the SRTP process and see what RCTC will fund through the capital improvement.
That makes sense. All right,
Project.
thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, at this point, seeing no other comments, I entertain a motion, please.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the purchase of a 5-year subscription to Swiftly in an amount not to exceed $249,200 as part of fiscal year 23 RCTC STA, project number 23-05, and authorize the mayor to sign the order form.
I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item 17, Memorandum of Understanding with the City of Banning for the Free Fare Promotion. Staff report, Ms. Mendoza.
During the SRTP process, we talked about the Low Carbon Transportation Operation Program, otherwise known as the Free Fare Promotion. In accepting our portion of the grant, which was $62,000, Banning approached us and asked us to administer their portion of the grant as well. Mr. Lara recommended we go back and negotiate an administrative fee, which we were successful in doing. Banning approved this MOU of understanding last Tuesday on 6/14 with the 5%. I'm just awaiting a signed copy for the city clerk's office, and we'll go from there. Happy to
And
answer
do we have any
questions.
public comments on this?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers.
And I have a quick question. The negotiation of the administrative fee was with Banning, the City of
Correct.
Banning? Okay,
Yes, with
thank
their
you.
public works director, who oversees their transit.
Okay, great.
program.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, and on that note, so since we're responsible for the grant reporting and the progress reporting based on their data, we've already decided, deadlines and timelines and so forth.
Correct.
Okay.
We've done this in the past, apparently, so this is our second time administering it. Last time we didn't have the admin fee. They have to submit their monthly or quarterly passenger counts, ticketed information, all the required documentation in order for us to process payment. Otherwise, if it doesn't meet the grant requirements, we won't process the payment. It's my understanding.
That did it. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments from council, I entertain a motion on this one.
May I make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Beaumont and the City of Banning for the administering of the LCTOP Fee Fair Promotion Grant?
I'll second.
Too many acronyms.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item 18, pre-approval of vehicles and equipment. Staff report, Jennifer Eustachian. Looks like a Jennifer and Carrie show tonight.
Yes, it is. So the city's purchasing policy states that all purchases above $25,000 are to be brought forward for city council for approval. In August of 2021, there was an item brought forth for pre-approval of vehicles and equipment. With the supply chain issue, supply demand, it's become quite an issue trying to purchase these items. Therefore, it's kind of imperative if we want to be able to purchase these that we have a pre-approval and not have to wait for council meetings to get these purchases approved. A lot of directors are telling me that when they go to purchase a vehicle, the dealers, if they find them, the dealers are telling them that they will not hold them regardless. So we would like to get, there's a list of all the vehicles and equipment for the budget for fiscal year '23 is attached. And then you would be pre-approving that if they can get those, that they would be able to purchase those items. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Okay, do we have any public comments?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No, no callers.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Finn.
So since the city has purchased vehicles from Raceway Ford in the past, my son works there. And so question for council, if I were to pre-approve this, does that limit the city on being able to use that dealership as a source?
Does your son live at home with you? And
Yes.
Is he financially dependent on you?
Not really.
Okay, well, then what I would recommend is that you recuse yourself from the item if that's where we're going to be purchasing vehicles and maybe.
And so my question then is, if we give this pre-approval to do so, does it need, it's to not come back to council to finalize that purchase, correct?
Correct.
So I don't want to give the pre-approval and then have it go to Raceway Ford.
Right, and if that's the place that happens to have the
Okay.
vehicle, that's very a possibility.
So then, am I
So you
okay
could-
then with just
you could
abstaining
recu-
from
you
this
can-
vote?
You can recuse yourself for that reason that you've just stated and then step out of the room and
Okay.
the remaining council
I'll
members
do
can
that.
vote.
Thank you.
Just to avoid
Yeah,
the
no problem.
potential that the vehicle's purchased from that dealer.
Mr. Santos.
And Mayor, just to be clear, it's not been indicated that that's where the vehicles are going to be purchased. I want to be
Understood.
clear on that. It's just
Understood.
within the realm of possibility, so.
I think it makes sense to be safe, yes. Okay. So seeing no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion on number 18, please.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to pre-approve the purchase of vehicles and equipment within the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget authority.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to item 19, approval of fiscal year 2023 requisitions greater than $25,000 in accordance with the City of Beaumont purchasing ordinance. Staff report, not Jennifer Eustachian.
We thought we'd change it up a little bit.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before you, I have the fiscal year 23 requisitions that are greater than 25,000 in accordance with the City of Beaumont purchasing ordinance. This list of vendors are our sole source vendors or vendors whose contracts have been already approved and fall into the fiscal year 22-23. All potential payments listed in this agenda item are included within the fiscal year 23 adopted city budget, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have on this list.
And for the record, the staff report was by Lisa Leach. Do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No, no one on the line.
Okay, Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, just a quick question. So, if we approve the list, where do we get details about what we purchased? Does it come out in the warrants, or is there another
Yes.
future, is there another report or council report that comes back
It would mostly show up on the warrants.
on the warrant? Okay, so
Yes.
that's the way to show transparency. is
Correct.
That this amount matches.
These
the amount
amounts
we
match,
approved.
yes.
Okay, we'll go for that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Venn, did you have any questions, comments? Okay. At this point, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the listed requisitions for vendors to receive payment over $25,000 with the amount specified in attachment A of the report.
I'll second.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Thank
Item
you.
20. Item 20 is an item that deals with my employer, Environmental Systems Research Institute. I think we're now known as ESRI, but it's a small factor. So I'm going to recuse myself and step out of the room and hand the meeting over to Mayor Pro Tem Martinez, and I'll be back.
Okay, we're on item 20 to approve the small municipal and county government enterprise agreement with Environmental Services Research Institute, Inc. Item number 20, staff report from Carrie Mendoza.
Good evening. Once again, Mayor and Council, you have before you a staff report about GIS services with ESRI. Our current provider, a company by the name of Interwest, we currently contract with them. Everything is hosted on their servers, and they want to get out of the GIS business. So during the 22-23 fiscal year budget process, we started exploring options to transition those services and potentially hire our own GIS analysts, which you have now adopted in the budget. So first phase of this is to get our data and our information off of Interwest systems. So the best approach that we've worked out, the most affordable at this time, is to work with Esri and go to a cloud-based solution, activating Esri ArcGIS Online, so we can transition the data from their servers to the cloud, integrate our GIS analyst who can start managing and populating our own data, our own maps, that sort of thing. Future phases, you'll see us trying to bring forward data storage devices for us to house our own data, but that is a lot. GIS, as you know, is a lot of data. Esri is the main GIS provider to all city, county entities. So what we have before you is a county government enterprise agreement that we'd request the mayor sign. We have money in the current fiscal year ISF budget to get the process started now, so that hopefully with the next year's budget, our GIS person can hit the ground running, get some things going for us. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Do we have public comment?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No, no callers.
Okay, and with that, I'll open it for council discussion or questions. Mr. Finn?
Yes, thank you. Carrie, so within our Finance and Audit Committee, we had a subcommittee for our safety taxes, and we wanted to have a map function to be able to ultimately have the public where they can click on their address, find information on it. this will help lead towards setting that up,
This will get
correct?
us there.
Awesome.
Interwest doesn't have the staffing, and as you see, they're pulling out of the GIS, so we could never get to the finish line on that project.
Okay.
This will help us get there,
So
yes.
so then getting that data, hiring an individual, where do you think in terms of a time frame that we might be able to start working on that?
I know that's a priority from council, so I'd like to say, once we get the data, even working with ProWest, who's kind of gonna be that middleman they're gonna take Interwest's place for a little while. I think those are things we can work with ProWest, once they get the maps up to date, because we're a little behind. We have a lot of track maps in a lot of areas that haven't been uploaded. Once we get the data updated, I think it's an easy layer to add, because we have the Excel spreadsheet. So from what I understand, it shouldn't be that hard to do. I'm not a
Okay.
GIS person, but I'd like to say within 90 days.
Oh, super, okay. I was thinking 6 months to a year, so that's
Maybe
good
I'm
news.
maybe
All
I'm
right.
overproducing, but I don't think so. To me, it's a layer. Add the layer, you have the data, you just upload it and off you
Okay.
go. We
No,
just
it's
need the
good to
right
have a
people to hit the right
perspective.
buttons, right?
All right, cool, thank
With
you.
my hands.
You say so.
All right, anyone else? We're good. I do have a quick question. So, ProWest will be that middle person right now until we get it going.
Because we need to
Now-
get the data off of the server and into the cloud, so Esri doesn't do that piece.
Okay, and then they'll run it until we get someone in
Correct.
internal. Now, if we don't get someone in internal, when does the ProWest contract end? Is it 1 year only?
Well, right now, it's only approved at the 14,855, which is under your city manager's signing authority. She can spend up to 25, and if we get close to that and we need to go over, we'll bring it back to council for consideration.
And have we discussed the possibility of them being a little longer if we can't find someone?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And
they are willing. They've actually provided us additional pricing options for additional transition, and it's all just gonna be a matter of timing on when we can get a GIS person
Okay.
in here.
Good, so
But
we
yeah,
have
we
a
have
fall.
that ready, and we'll just know to pull the trigger and bring it back for a contract. Because we did get 4 companies to bid, and again, it was under the city manager signing authority, but I thought it was worth noting. But ProWest did the GIS layer with the police department and their new CAD, Mark 43. We were happy with their service, so that's why we opted to stick with them.
Perfect. Yeah, it is. Okay, well, seeing no further, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize Mayor Pro Tempore to sign the small enterprise agreement, county and municipal government.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes. All right, thank you. And with that, with the return of our mayor, we'll be going into item 21.
Okay. Item 21, approval of city attorney invoices for the month of May.
And given that this affects my law firm, I will be recusing myself on this item.
And do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers.
Okay, any questions or comments? Mr. Martinez, no? Mr. Santos, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, so at this point, I need a motion. I will go ahead and move to approve the invoices in the amount of $135,442.80.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item 22, legislative updates and discussion. Staff report from Christina Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you this evening is a continuation, well, not a technical continuation, but a bring back item from last council meeting. There are a series of bills that are proposed right now that are moving somewhat swiftly through the legislature. Each of them pertain to changes in transportation funding or transportation projects. The first bill is Assemblymember Garcia's bill, AB 1778. This bill would prohibit state funds or personnel time from being used for certain freeway projects that fall in what are essentially considered disadvantaged areas. And although the cities and generally cities across the board support, reducing pollution and improving air qualities, the way that this bill is worded would essentially result in less access to highways, less highway construction in areas that are already severely congested and could actually benefit from some highway improvements. This bill is opposed by RCTC, and they have asked for our support in opposing this bill. It is on the League of California Cities watch list, but it is scheduled for a Senate Transportation Committee hearing the end of the month. The next two bills are proposed by Assemblymember Friedman. AB 2438 would require projects that are funded by state funding programs to align with state climate goals. And so the issue here is that the way the bill is written, it would require projects that are currently funded to either meet the CAPTE or lose funding. And so this bill is not taking into account that it's changing program guidelines that are already in place and that projects have currently been funded or are in the process of being constructed based on current guidelines as opposed to what this legislation would cause, which would be a change in guidelines sort of midway through a lot of existing projects. It doesn't take into account that, agencies like ours, City of Beaumont or RCTC have already committed funds to, build these projects and now the sort of, I guess the target is a moving target now on projects that are existing. This bill is opposed also by RCTC. The League of California Cities opposes unless there's some significant amendments. And this bill is also scheduled for a Senate Transportation Committee hearing at the end of the month. And the last bill that staff is requesting your authorization to oppose is another measure that basically deals with projects that are funded by local tax measures to, again, meet the CAPTE requirements, the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, and also the Regional Sustainable Communities Strategies. So this would prohibit county transportation commissions from funding a project that would not be consistent with the Sustainable Communities strategies, programs. So, and again, this bill, similarly to the previous one, fails to realize that cities are already investing in improving transportation. Funding has already been allocated. Projects are being designed. The intent of the CAPTE, as it was written, was not to eliminate projects that are existing, but to influence future projects. So any project from X point forward, since the CAPTE has been adopted, would take into account those climate action plan goals. But these pieces of legislation would essentially enact change on projects that are already existing prior to when the CAPTE was adopted. So this one is also opposed by RCTC and the League of Cities. So staff is requesting authorization or requesting that the mayor sign these letters of opposition so that we may submit them. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Katie, do we have anyone on the line?
No, we have no callers.
Okay, thank you. I'll open this up to council. Mr. Santos, did you have a question? Okay. Mr. Finn.
Just a quick question. Do on something like this, do we coordinate with our neighbors and put any type of joint letter together? Does that carry more weight than just us individually?
So I believe RCTC has reached out to all of the cities that are member of the RCTC, so I imagine that each city would be individually submitting if their councils choose to take a similar position.
And then then with that, then would RCTC then, and maybe perhaps in their letter, cite the number of cities that are in that in case we're overlooked individually?
They may do so, and what we do, staff will submit this into the Assembly member's office. We also will send it to Assembly Member Mays as well as Senator Bogue's office so that they're aware of it, and upload it into, there's a system that we can upload the bill into so everybody sees that it's in there. But we can reach out to RCTC and see what their approach is going to be as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, so I always support, or often support, those programs to help climate. But like you said, this is just one of those other flawed type of poorly thought out ways of dealing with a big problem. You know, when you have programs that have already been decided by cities and planned and now have to sit there and adjust, that's devastating to the communities. And like the one of the letter part said, it really is doing more harm than good, or at least is having unintended consequences that they really need to think about when they come up with these things. I wonder sometimes these legislators ever been in the city or stuff that really look at, you know, they're trying to solve a problem, which is commendable, but you really have to look at how you're trying to do that. And, you know, in the past, I've often had that conflict because, again, I'm, you know, supporter of trying to help with climate change. But, you know, when you have things like this that just make no sense, I can't support that. So I agree with the letters and support that. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, seeing no other comments, did I ask for public comments on this one? You did. Okay. At this point, I'll entertain a motion. I guess we're supposed to consider these letters. Let's take a motion if we have one.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we, that the council approve the letters of opposition and ask staff to submit those on our behalf.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Okay, we'll get an economic development update.
So there is no economic development, economic development committee update this evening. We did meet we met earlier this month. And there was a brief presentation. We did not have quorum. The committee is dark in July, and so we'll resume in August.
So I apologize for missing that meeting, but I have a question. We are constantly struggling with a quorum. And we are still holding meetings that are combination hybrid, right? Zoom and in person?
Correct.
Are we having the same problem with the Finance and Accounting Committee as far as, the Finance Audit Committee?
Yes.
Yes, Mayor. We've had 2 in a row.
Okay.
Is it due to summer vacations, or has it been accumulating for a while on quorum issues?
It's been a few months for economic development.
On the finance, it's one quit.
Oh.
Step down on that, so.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just add a suggestion, I think having witnessed and being on those committees, both economic development for a while and the finance and audit since I've been here, I get a sense that the members on there feel a little disconnected and perhaps that they don't feel like that they're able to contribute. Not any negative reflection on staff, but maybe just the fact of the material that's brought there. There's not a whole lot of thought and participation that's needed from the members. I know that things will change and we will need their input more as more things come up, but maybe just getting kind of just re-energizing them and just to say, hey, there might not be much going on now, but we still need you and we still need a quorum to conduct business. But I think they just some members may have lost some motivation there.
Can I suggest that each committee brings this up as an agenda item and discusses, maybe get some feedback from the committee members as to as to why we're struggling to get the attendance that we need. Maybe we don't need to meet every month. Yeah, it's a struggle when you have people who make the time to come out for it, and then we don't have a quorum. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that up. So city treasurer report.
Yes,
Mr.
we covered part of what I was going to say because we did not have our meeting last week because we didn't have a quorum for the second time in a row. And we did have one resignation. I slightly disagree with Mr. Finn. Our committee for the last several years, since we did get some assignments from the council, have been pretty much engaged on producing outputs that the council has witnessed. The tape on the finance activities within the community. We did something on sustainability and the bonds. I don't know. It just happened these last two meetings, and I don't know if it's vacations or not. And the one person that resigned, it was because of their work influence. I know we have scheduled a meeting with Ms. Gibbs and with finance, with Jennifer and myself and the two board members, council members, on July 6th to discuss this. So I think it may be premature on my committee's activity right now, what it may be. That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Finn.
Yeah, Mr. Genetti, thanks for that. And to further clarify my comments, that was more directed to my experience with the Economic Development Committee. We did have more engagement with the finance and audit folks.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Giannetti. Did you have a treasurer's report, or was that it?
That was it. We didn't have a meeting. We canceled the meeting. We didn't even have one because we wouldn't have been able to have a vote on what Jennifer presented tonight. And I just said, Jennifer, go ahead. It wouldn't matter. Why have the meeting?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And we'll go to the city clerk report. Mr. Melman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, the city clerk's office project status. Number one is a Laserfish cloud server project, a migration of Laserfish data from a retiring server to a cloud-based system for overall stability and more reliable access to electronic records. This has been completed as of May. Next, records indexing and filing. A complete indexing of all records within the city clerk's office and the implementation of a new filing system to be categorized in a user-friendly structure and format. That is 40% completed, and the completion date should be March of 2023. Next, the 2022 municipal election will have 5 seats up for election, 3 council members, treasurer, and city clerk. Nomination period opens on July 18th. Lastly, Laserfish cleanup. A restructure of folders to replicate the new filing system being established for ease of locating documents. A full audit of the documents will be conducted to be in accordance with the adopted retention schedule policy. This has not started yet. We expect it to be finished in October of 2023. Next, the public records report request for the month. Total of 11 requests were completed. Staff time allocated 4.75 hours. And now to finish up, I'd like to introduce Nicole with another item. Thank you.
I just wanted to give a reminder that there will be a city-hosted FPPC webinar tomorrow from 7 to 9 p.m. And this will be for candidates and treasurers to go over all of the FPPC forms, and they'll have a Q&A also. It is via Zoom only, so if anybody is interested, please send me an email and I will send you the Zoom link.
Okay, thank you. And we now move on to the city attorney report.
Yes. In terms of pending litigation against the city is down essentially to one case where the city has been sued and served with a lawsuit, and that's the Ilopatofe case and there's a federal case pending that's at the pleading stage, and then he also filed a writ claim in state court related to the same operative facts. So from our perspective, it's, although in two different courts, the two matters are related and it's the same plaintiff. So I view it as one dispute that we have. And we're dealing with those matters at the pleading stage. We also periodically check the court websites to see if there are any lawsuits that have been filed that haven't been served, and there are two. And when they are served on the city, we will bring them to you if they are ever served. And then we'll make you aware of them, but we won't do that this evening. And then in terms of lawsuits that the city has filed, as you know, we had the case that the city filed against Norton Rose, and we are working on finalizing a settlement in that case. So that should be off the list soon. And then also we still have the ULC Torcal dispute. That's the Torcal case on appeal. And then AIG, that case is going fast and furious right now. A lot of depositions occurring, and I was deposed in that case because I was the one that tendered the claim. And so that case is prepping for trial at this stage. We did have a mediation in that case. It was not successful, and so the parties have been preparing the case for trial. And that's my report this evening.
Okay, thank you. City manager report.
Good evening, everyone. Department project updates are included in your agenda packet, and a reminder that the WRCOG General Assembly is on Thursday evening. That concludes my report.
Okay, do we have any future agenda item requests? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to council reports. And we'll go ahead and start with Mr. Lara. Okay, Mr. Santos?
Just a quick one in here. I really enjoyed the, LEAC, the law enforcement appreciation committee in there. And Chief Tillis is great, man. This year, we got the K9 in there, got, really got an award and appreciated and everything. So, and of course, our our not interim, our city manager, Lise Gibbs was there, and we have a great time in there, sitting with the chief and other officers in there. I really appreciate that. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Finn?
Yes, thank you. Our land use mitigation subcommittee with Mayor Pro Tem Martinez and I met with staff, had a couple of different agenda items. One thing that we did review is the county's good neighbor policy in reference to warehouses and so forth, with the possibility of, does the city want to adopt one? And so we gave some input to staff and so forth. And so we'll have some more information on that forthcoming. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
I just echo that attendance at that committee meeting and no further report.
Okay, thank you. I attended the ribbon cutting for Big Lots. We had, there was a good turnout on Saturday morning. We had some scratchers, and some of us did okay, and others really cleaned up, and I won't mention her name, but it was it's a neat, it's the first time I've been in a Big Lots, and I think it's a good addition to City of Beaumont. So with that, I have nothing else to report. We'll move to adjournment, and the next regular meeting of the Beaumont City Council will be July 19th at 5 p.m. We are off on July 5th. We will not be having a meeting. So at that point, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:44. What's that?
Were you going to break that?
Well, you never even hit it.
Oh, I would pound it.